Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to give a severe weather season update and talk about reducing your exposure to weather. I'm very excited to introduce our panelists today, starting with Steve Strum, also known as the Professor. He is our senior long-range forecaster. Steve, how are you doing today?
Great, Rennie, thank you.
How's the weather up there in Tulsa?
It's perfect. It's near 70 today, some sun, low humidity, which for late May in Oklahoma is about as good as you can get.
And not a recipe for severe weather.
Not at all.
Yeah, but that's a nice day up there in Tulsa. And we're also excited to have our Director of Entertainment Services, Dax Cochran. Dax is in Norman, Oklahoma today. Dax, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Rennie.
All right. Well, what we're going to do in this webinar is update the severe weather season and talk about what has happened and what we expect to happen going forward, as well as we're going to talk about some of our weather ops services for those in the live event industry and the products that can help you be prepared if weather should interrupt any of your operations. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. We will answer them as we go along. But for now, we'll get into the severe weather season update, and I'm happy to introduce in again Steve Strum, our senior long-range forecaster.
Okay, well, thanks, Rennie. We are going to go ahead and take a look at the upcoming severe weather season, or the remainder of the severe weather season. If I can get this to come back up, here we go. So again, we have had a very active than normal severe weather season thus far this year. We've had pretty much from January right on through May so far, a pretty recurring theme of active severe weather across the country, and that trend will likely continue on into the summer season the way it looks right now. However, normally we do see most of our tornadic activity, most of our big hail events tend to happen in April and May historically, and by the time we get to July, that kind of transitions to more of a high wind threat for many areas. You don't tend to see as many tornado outbreaks or large hail events by the middle of the summer, and that likely will be the case again this year as well. And so you will likely see that mode of severe weather kind of transition as we go forward in time during the next month or two, but nonetheless, likely staying on average more active than normal. And again, we are still likely going to see a few more tornado outbreaks. We are still right at the peak right now, and likely that will continue to be a threat going forward here for the next several weeks. Now, looking at tornado climatology as a whole, the chart on the left-hand side shows the overall occurrence of tornadoes by day of the year historically. And that black line indicates where we are right now. You can see we're pretty much right on the peak of climatology for tornadic activity. Historically, that the whole Memorial Day weekend time frame tends to be the peak of the season for many years. And then things kind of gradually ramp down during the month of June and quickly fade off thereafter. So likely, we are still going to be seeing some more active tornado outbreaks going forward here for the next month or so before things begin to quiet down, at least in terms of that type of severe weather. Now, we did talk about in our last severe weather webinar back in, I believe, March or April, about how we do tend to see a general tendency for more tornadoes and more severe weather in general coming out of a La Nina winter, which we had this past winter. Now, it was a weak La Nina, but nonetheless, we did have a overall weak La Nina pattern this past winter, and historically that has favored an active and an early severe weather season across the country, and that was pretty much the case again this year. If you go forward in time here and look at what we've seen, or go back in time, look what we've seen so far in terms of tornadic activity so far this year, 870 tornadoes through yesterday versus a normal of 691, that normal being the 10-year average. So certainly you can see by the red line there, we have been pretty much staying consistently above average in terms of overall tornadic activity across the country this year. So again, kind of fitting that post La Nina mode that we typically see with a lot of severe weather following those types of winter seasons. And not just tornadoes, if you look at large hail events as well, pretty much the same story there. We have been staying consistently more active than normal in terms of having quite a few significant severe hail events across the country thus far this year, and pretty much the same story for wind. Now, while we do tend to see the tornadic activity and the large hail activity sort of tend to peak in the mid to late springtime period. You'll notice from this chart as well, the gray bars indicate the climatology of those events in terms of by day of the year. And we actually see most of our significant severe wind events happen during the months of June and July. And so while we have had quite a few of those events thus far, in fact, we're running well above normal, we're not even, we're still about a month away from the overall peak of the severe wind season in terms of having those damaging wind events, and especially across the eastern third of the country or so. We usually see a lot of those large squall line events that produced widespread damaging wind events, tend to happen more in the middle of the summer. And so we're not quite to that time period yet. So likely we will still see quite a few more of those severe weather events going forward here as we progress through the balance of the upcoming summer. Now, one thing we have been watching this year is the possibility of a weak to moderate El Nino trying to get going here in the Pacific Ocean. The chart on the right shows some of the forecast models kind of projecting that general trend towards El Nino. The red line there indicates the sort of the threshold for El Nino. Most of the models forecasting the Pacific to get warmer than that as we go forward through the summer and into the fall season, but not all models are, and there's still a lot of variation in terms of strength. But it's not just really whether or not we're in an El Nino, but really what the overall water temperature pattern is across the eastern Pacific. The key there being is that if we do see much of the eastern Pacific stay warmer than normal as it is right now, that tends to promote more tropical convection and activity in general across the eastern Pacific, which in turn tends to promote more moisture transport up into the U.S. as we head through the latter part of spring and summer. And we've seen that to some extent so far this year already, and that does tend to promote a more active and normal southwestern monsoon. It also produces more thunderstorm activity across the plains and Midwest during the summer season as well. And so if we do see that continue to progress towards an El Nino, and we see a further enhancement of that warm water in the eastern Pacific, that will further enhance our general rain and storm chances across the U.S. going forward through the summer season. So not only will it be wetter than normal across portions of the Midwest and plains, we could also be seeing, again, a generally more active than normal severe weather summer across those areas as well. This is our current summer forecast in terms of temperature and rainfall on the left-hand side. Most of the U.S. forecast to average warmer than normal, especially across the interior West. The Midwest staying closer to normal. Places like Chicago and Detroit and Cincinnati could be seeing a fairly seasonal summer in terms of temperature. But we are looking, though, for much of the middle of the country to be wetter than normal. And that area of green there on the lower left showing the areas that are favored to see above normal rainfall also can be kind of used as an indicator of the areas that may be seeing the more frequent severe weather as well as we progress through the summer season. Now, the maps on the right-hand side show what we've seen so far this year, or at least so far this spring, March through May, at least through today. You can see on the top there, most of the country has been warmer than normal and wetter than normal as well, with the exception of portions of the southern tier there. Southern California, the Southwest, Texas, and Florida have been missing out largely thus far on a lot of the rain in general, not just severe weather events. But as we do progress forward through the summer season, we likely will see an uptick in rainfall, at least across the southeast. And so while it has been dry and we haven't seen a whole lot of thunderstorm activity across Florida and parts of the southeast so far this year, that likely will change going forward. And we should see a general increase in both this general rainfall and thunderstorm activity and potential severe weather events across that part of the country going forward as well. To kind of look at the drought issues as well across the country, the maps on the right-hand side show the overall pattern of drought that we see currently versus what we saw last year. So you can see California certainly is much wetter. The southeast, though, is drier. And the map on the left there shows the last 90 days in general where the rain has been and where it has not been. Again, the southeast has been drier than normal. But again, that likely will change somewhat going forward through the summer. And we should see more rainfall and more severe weather chances across that area as we head into June and July. So looking at climatologically where things tend to appear, you can see on the maps here on the left-hand side showing tornadoes and wind events, on the right-hand side hail and severe weather events. And for the most part, we see a general tendency as we progress through the summer season through June and July to see the severe weather progress northward across the country with time. And so while we tend to see a lot of that activity happen across Kansas and Oklahoma during the middle part of the spring, that tends to shift northward across the northern tier of the U.S. as we progress into the remainder of the spring and into the summer season. As we progress through the months of the key point there was that we do see a general northward trend with time of overall severe weather activity. Typically, we tend to see the upper Midwest being the focal areas for severe weather during the months of July and August, as well as eastward across the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. And now the one caveat, though, is that when we do see a landfalling tropical system across the Gulf Coast or the southeast, those tend to bring with them the threat for tornado activity as well. And so if we do see any landfalling storms later on this summer, that likely will increase the threat for severe weather as well across those Gulf Coast and southeast states that may be possibly impacted by any tropical activity. But anyway, that's the summary for what we're looking at right now. We are looking to see, again, the overall pattern stay more active and normal through the summer season, especially across the plains and the Midwest, with potentially more storms also eventually invading the southeast as we progress through the summer season. So with that, I'll pass things back to Rennie, who can introduce us to the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Steve, and very interesting that, you know, a lot of people associate severe weather strictly with tornadoes, but damaging wind, and especially straight line winds, can be very detrimental to the live event space, especially where stages are built or tents are put up. And we're really just now starting to approach the season where straight line winds and widespread wind damage becomes the concern. And so to discuss how WeatherOps will help prepare you for those situations and the products and services that we provide, happy to bring in Dax Cochran. Dax is our Director of Entertainment Services and works with thousands of events and festivals each year to get them prepared for storms. And Dax, take us through the scenario here.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks to Steve for a great update. And really what we do here at WeatherOps is we've developed a full suite of services and tailored a lot of it specifically for the event and entertainment industries. We support everything from music festivals to artist tours to sporting events, various production companies, staging companies, you name it. And it really takes a kind of a complete solution to be able to provide every aspect of weather that someone needs, especially as it deals with event management. So what we've done is really blended the best of what technology has to offer with the critical forecaster support that's needed to be able to guide our event customers through weather scenarios to, number one, keep all of their attendees and folks safe, but then also do what we can to ensure you have a successful event as well. And it all really begins as you're planning for an event. We have a full suite of forecast products that we will email out to not only our customer, but any of their crews to make sure everyone is in the loop on what to expect weather-wise as you're going through various stages of planning and then executing your event. This is an example of our 7-day, or actually this is an example of our weather check. We send 2 forecast products out each morning for every event that we are supporting. And these forecasts are very interesting because they're fully customizable. So if you've invested in a safety plan or some sort of severe weather action plan for your event, we're able to go in and customize all of the thresholds for these forecast products to match exactly what your event safety plan is going to call for. You can see we use a pretty simple green, yellow, red system for the various weather threats, especially the ones that would impact an event, like we've been discussing, strong winds, storm and lightning threats, heavy rain, those kinds of things. So you would receive these forecast products each morning. So if you're in the middle of setting up an event or even just planning to begin the setup for your event, you'll have a pretty good idea of what to expect for the days leading up, and more importantly, about what time to anticipate any sort of significant weather that you could experience that could impact your operations. Like I said, the example of the weather check is a little bit different than the 7-day planner, in that the 7-day planner will forecast everything out in 6-hour increments. whereas the weather check will forecast everything out in 2-hour increments. So what we really coach all of our customers to do is really make sure that you're reviewing this forecast every morning. And if you see something on there that is concerning to you, that's a really great time to engage the rest of the weather ops service. Because in addition to the forecast products, we also provide a full suite of alerting. These alerts are delivered to your crews via email, through a push notification through our companion mobile app, which we'll show examples of. But we have fully customizable, high precision lightning alerts that leverages a large lightning network that provides a high degree of both detection efficiency as well as location accuracy. So all of those range rings can be customized, again, to match whatever your operations and safety plans say. In addition to the lightning alerts, we also provide the full suite of National Weather Service alerts that you would be interested in. And again, those are also delivered via email and through push notification through the app. And then all of this technology that we provide is really backed by where a lot of folks would think that the biggest value add for the service comes from, and that's with our 24/7 forecast support center. We have forecasters around the clock that are tasked with monitoring and watching over events, and then issuing various products that can be everything from outlooks to our event customers if they're anticipating some sort of severe weather outbreak or something weather sensitive that could impact an event down the line. They will issue those all the way up to your kind of real-time nowcasting watches and warnings. Again, these guys are here 24/7. They're available by phone. So again, as far as the process goes for an event customer, as long as they are reviewing those forecasts, they'll see if there's going to be a problem area. From there, they can immediately loop in the forecast team and almost make a plan for that weather event. Really, for a lot of the event customers we have, weather is a very small part of their job. We like to do what we can to take over the weather aspect of it and be available for when they need us. So how that scenario would unfold is if maybe you have an event day and you're anticipating some sort of inclement weather later in the day, maybe increased wind speeds or storms. You can immediately loop in the forecast desk, make a plan for the day. If you're going to be meeting with different stakeholders as it pertains to your event, you can almost communicate with our forecast desk how best and when to get you the updates that you need, so that when you meet with your folks and you make decisions on implementing your plans, it seems to be a really great flow to make sure that you're getting the vital information that you need, and also have it in a communication structure that works best specifically for your event. Here's an example of the mobile app that we provide. Again, this companion mobile app can be accessed not only by yourself, but any of your crew members, anyone on the production team. Here they can look at live radar, they can see lightning strikes, they can read all of the information for any alerts or updates or outlooks that they're getting from the forecast desk, or even things like lightning alerts. They can also review the forecasts that we would be sending by email. For any of those customers that are also RadarScope users, you can always look at your event location utilizing the RadarScope high-res radar data, which a lot of people love and seems to be very helpful as well. We're in the middle of event season. Our guys are here and ready to go. So if anyone has any needs, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help. We're here to answer questions, and happy to hear and take any questions that anyone may have. With that, I'll kick it back over to Rennie.
Yeah, Dax, you and Steve were so solid with your information that we didn't have any questions today, and that's okay. But if you do have questions as you come along, a great way to ask them is to visit weatherops.com. On that page, there's the ability to fill out a form to get in contact with us, and we'll reach out quickly. You know, our goal is that every event that we work with is safe, and that we provide enough quick weather information that you can make great decisions, and that the show can continue to go on if the weather allows, and that everybody is safe if bad weather perhaps comes along. So visit weatherops.com. You can fill out a form, and again, we'll get in contact with you. We just want to thank our panelists, Steve and Dax. Great information today. And we thank all of our attendees for joining us on this webinar and on Facebook Live. And reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, we just wish you a great day. Thanks again.